Welcome back to the Angry Man Podcast with Jason and Greg. So yesterday we did a video in regards to Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence, the rematch, and the fact that it's being planned for February 2024. Now that's being reported by Mike Cappinger. In this particular instance, I do believe Mike Cappinger, considering the fact that I also believe that he gets his information directly from Terence Crawford and or someone on Terence Crawford's team. So when I hear information from Mike Cappinger, I believe that information is coming directly from Crawford. And if he is saying that it's being planned for February, I'm going to believe it. Now, with that being the case, he also mentioned that there's still the issue of the weight. I believe that that is a situation that can be resolved, but it will require Errol Spence to do what he did yet again in the first fight, which is concede. And more than likely, the concession will be additional dollars for Terence Crawford in order for the fight to be at 154 pounds. Now, there have been people that said that, they're not necessarily interested in a rematch. How could the performance or the outcome of the fight be any different? Number one, I've always felt that this fight, it just all depends on your marketing, right? You got to come up with an excuse. I mean, it is what it is. Errol doesn't necessarily have to come up with an excuse, but you definitely got to have a reason for why he performed in the way that he performed. And there are a number of reasons that are already out there, some of which I think have validity in terms of just being dehydrated because Errol just didn't have the level of strength that you would have expected in that fight and lacked some punch resistance, in my personal opinion. And that's typically a sign of being dehydrated. But the other ones relative to Terence Crawford, I don't believe at all. So I dismiss those. I've done a video on those, and I totally dismiss that rumor. I don't believe that at all. So with that being said, I've also said that I went back and looked at the video, and there are some tweaks that Errol Spence can make to make this fight more competitive. Just from a stylistic standpoint or a technical standpoint, there were some errors that Terence Crawford was able to take advantage of. Now, of course, the Terence Crawford fans and trolls will retort with, well, Terence Crawford didn't even go into his bag really, and he'll come out with something different, and Errol won't be able to handle that. We shall see. But I'm talking specifically to what I saw in that particular fight. There are some tweaks that Errol Spence can make to make the fight more competitive. Now, one tweak that I'm hearing, and this is going out to this is from my guy. Shout out to Ray Jackson on Twitter, who I know definitely has some connections, not only just in boxing in general, but also has some connections with the Spence camp. He is saying that Blu-ray is now officially back with Errol Spence training, and they're already in the lab training as we speak, getting ready for the fight in February with Terence Crawford. Now, Jason and I have talked about this on multiple occasions, but I don't believe we've actually talked about this in a video. We were saying basically if we were Errol, as soon as that fight was over and we were healed up enough, we came off of our vacation with the family and things of that nature and got a little bit of a break, a few weeks break, we would have been right back in the lab preparing for Terence Crawford. Because personally, I think a lot of the issue that Errol had was not only, he looked weak and dehydrated, in my opinion. You can argue it all you want to in the comments section. That's perfectly fine with me. But at the end of the day, when you think about Errol over the last 3 years, some people come out, they'll say, well, Errol didn't look the same after the car accident. But is it really that Errol didn't look the same after the car accident? Or is it a situation where after the car accident, Errol was out for a significant amount of time? Then he fought Danny Garcia. Then he was out and he was supposed to fight Manny Pacquiao, had the retina issue. Then he was out even longer. Then he fought Yordenis Ugas after being out months and months and months. And then he got back into the ring with Terence Crawford after being out, close to 18 months or something like that. So I think it's important for Errol to be more active. I think the level of inactivity eventually affected him, especially against a fighter that's, Terence Crawford's level, right? Terence Crawford is a top-notch fighter, regardless of what you guys try to spin it as, basically saying that we said that Terence Crawford didn't have a chance and we disrespected him and blah, 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 blah. We've already dispelled those rumors, and if you want me to share the video, I can certainly do that as well. But I believe that Errol needs to be more active, have a longer training camp, similar to what Terence did. Terence Crawford had a 4-month training camp. That's what Bomac said. So getting Blu-ray into the fold right now, I think is going to be beneficial. That's who you had your most success with. That's probably who you feel the most comfortable with. I can't personally vouch for whether or not Blu-ray is a better trainer than the guy that Errol Spence had for his initial fight with Terence Crawford. But one of the points that Blu-ray made is that he's been with Errol for a long time. And so just being with Errol for so long, he probably has a better understanding of what Errol body reacts to well and what it doesn't necessarily react to well. What may benefit Errol from a strength and conditioning standpoint, just based off of all the experience he's had working with him, and what might be somewhat detrimental and might drain him or deplete him to some degree in training camp and in preparation for a fight. So that could be a benefit for Errol. If he's already back in the lab working and getting himself physically prepared for Terence Crawford with Blu-ray, that's great. But what he also needs to do is be back in the lab working on the technical stuff. That's what Derek James mentioned when he talked or when he made the comment after the Yordenis Ugas fight. He was like, yo, man, you got to get back. Got some things to clean up. Right after the fight, he was talking to Errol in the ring. That's exactly what he was talking about. Like, you got to get back in the lab and clean up some of those technical challenges that he displayed in the Ugas fight. Because believe it or not, even though some people like to point to the Ugas fight and they'll show you some of those clips and saying that Errol had all these technical flaws that he's always demonstrated, some of those flaws, yeah, he has, and other flaws he did not necessarily demonstrate in other fights. And even the flaws that he demonstrated in the Ugas fight, he actually usually had a counter for it. I was thinking about doing a film breakdown, but every time I do videos with other people content in it, we get flagged. So I'm kind of shying away from that right now. But definitely Errol's timing and things of that nature just seem to be off. And I think he needs to get back in the lab and work on those things. Now, would I pick Errol to win this fight at this moment, the rematch? I would not, because I have to believe what my eyes told me when I saw the initial fight, regardless. But at the end of the day, I think he can make improvements, and we'll see. You never know what a fighter might be able to pull out of his hat once he's at a comfortable weight and he has the opportunity to prepare. And specifically when he's had the opportunity to be in the ring with the fighter and experience some of the fighter's skill, he may have a better understanding and sense of what he needs to do in order to be victorious in the fight. So I'm excited if it's true that Blu-ray is back in his corner. I'm interested in seeing how Errol will perform at 154 with Blu-ray in his corner and a lot more time to prepare for Terence Crawford. I think it could be an interesting fight and one that's more competitive. But at this juncture, I would have to pick Terence Crawford to win the rematch. And Errol would have to show me something, or I would have to learn something during the training camp, or some other information would need to flow my way to convince me to pick Errol in the rematch at this point. So we'll see what ends up happening. But that's what's being reported, or at least mentioned by our good friend Ray Jack on Twitter in regards to Errol Spence working with Blu-ray. You guys tell me what you think in the comment section. Will Blu-ray play a significant role in how the fight plays out in a rematch? Possibly so, in my opinion. But you let me know what you think. Don't forget to hate, like, comment, and subscribe. This is the Angry Man Podcast, AM Sports Media, and I am out.